This is John. John likes to read. He reads everywhere he goes. In the schoolyard, on the bus, even the bathroom. And that's disgusting. But that is just how much John loves to read. Now, looking at John, what do you think of him? In a lot of movies, people like John are seen as nerdy and quiet. Stereotypically, it's associated with nerdiness because people assume that it is an arduous task. However, I'm here to tell you that your reading, yes, your reading can flourish without the need of talent or expertise. It can be built solely on habits, which is something anyone can achieve if built upon. Now, before I move on, I would like to talk a bit about myself. Actually, I'm quite similar to John, a reading fanatic, except that I don't read in the bathroom because, as I said before, that's gross. Reading has shaped my life ever since my mother started reading picture books to me at the age of 2. And even now, I still spend the majority of my free time within the pages of a book. 2 years ago, during the COVID-19 lockdown, I read 84 English novels, and I recorded how long it took for me to read each one. I was able to see how fast I could read a book from each genre, and I learned how to commit to a book whether I liked it or not. This helped me to build on my passion of reading, and it helped me to have a stronger reading habit. Now, sometimes in school, when I was reading, people would come up to me and say, "Why are you reading?" or "How do you read?" With these simplistic questions comes a plethora of others, such as, "How did I concentrate?" or "How did I stay interested in the story for so long?" And when I was first asked these questions, I didn't really have an answer to them. The main reason why people find reading hard is because they can't find a purpose in it. I love reading, but I also understand that in reality there are two sides, the ecstasy and the struggle. On one hand, I know what it's like to be immersed in the world of whatever story I'm reading, to be able to envision the settings and characters. But I also understand the difficulty. I know what it's like to have the book in my hands, to be staring at the pages, but not really understanding the words I am reading. English is my main language, while Japanese is my second, and I sometimes still struggle with understanding Japanese. And here's the secret. For the first 2 years in my secondary school, I never even completed a Japanese novel. And I think maybe some of you in the audience might relate to that. But all of this changed with a single thought. Whether it was public libraries or bookstores, I would always head to the English section first. And it's usually located in the middle or the back, never at the front because those were where the Japanese books were. And passing by all those Japanese books, I would think to myself, if only those books were in English, how much more I could read. Whenever I had to read a Japanese book for homework, it was really a struggle for me because I had set myself a standard in English where I could thoroughly enjoy a book and quickly read through it. When it came to Japanese, it was the complete opposite. It took me ages to even complete half a book, and I still couldn't understand what the story was about. So, anyway, back to me in the library. One day, when I was passing all the Japanese books, I thought to myself, if only my Japanese was good enough to understand more. That day, I picked up a book from the Gohun Dedokusho series, and it was the first book that encouraged me to step out of my comfort zone and challenge myself to complete. This book has chapters designed to be 5 minutes long, and that's what helped me to finish it. After the first chapter, I was surprised that I was able to understand the story without too much struggle. By here, the middle, I was excited and wanted to move on. And after finishing the story, I felt a sense of accomplishment and was proud that I finished my first Japanese book. Finishing this book felt more momentous than reading all the other books I had before, as I had achieved something that I had struggled with for a long time. When reading the book, I was able to feel the flow of the story and picture what the characters were doing, unlike all previous times before. I didn't struggle as much as I thought I would with the kanji, and most of the enjoyment came from realizing that reading Japanese was something that could become a habit. Through this, I learned that achieving a sense of peace and accomplishment was my ultimate purpose for reading. Once I set the habit, I was able to see exactly what my weak points were and how to overcome them. Specifically, through learning how to time manage my reading, I procrastinated less on my progress. This made it possible for me to set effective goals, and clearing them rewarded me with a sense of accomplishment. I also realized that reading made me feel calm no matter what environment I was in, and I wanted to feel that way for every book. Now, this is what gave me my purpose, and I believe that you can find your purpose too. So by now, you've heard me talk a bit about my experience of reading, and I think that some of you may be wondering, well, why should I read? Why is reading good? Parents, teachers, school, they always tell us that, well, reading is good for you, reading makes you smart. But what exactly are the benefits of reading? Research shows that reading improves our memory function and our concentration by allowing our brains to interpret words and put together a meaningful sentence. We become more empathetic when we understand the actions of characters, and books can help us to relax. It strengthens our tolerance through the eyes of others, and it broadens our sentience. Books are actually a form of entertainment, and this is something none of you should forget when reading. So, now that we know the takeaways from reading, what are some steps that you can implement in your lives to build a habit? When reading Japanese, I paid more attention to the process itself. Reading, like all skills, takes time. It isn't something that can be done in a day or even a month. But through my experience, I discovered 3 easy, memorable steps that can help anyone build their habit of reading. The first would be to change your thinking. Some of you may say that reading is boring, it's stressful, oh my goodness, it's more work. Schools have taught us that reading is restrictively a task to be done. And I think that maybe some of you in the audience may relate to how I feel about all the book reports, all the word counts, all the pages that need to be read. But reading doesn't have to be so serious. Since learning how to read is something that we are taught at a very young age, most of us have prejudice against it. People don't see reading as a skill that needs to be worked on. They see it as an unrewarding task that requires too much hard work. But reading is more than just opening a book and looking at the pages. It's about feeling the flow of the story, picturing what the characters are doing, what the settings look like, and understanding what the author is trying to tell you. Only books can immerse you in the impossible. They allow us to see more than what is around us, and it expands our imaginative ability. It unleashes our creativity in our personal and academic projects, in our careers, and so on. The more you read, the more knowledgeable, empathetic, and open-minded you will become. See, reading is so much more than a flip of a page. Now, the second step to start your habit would be to pick a book. Start at a level that you are comfortable with. It does not matter if reading picture books is the easiest way for you to build your habit. It is at least a start. If reading romance and fantasy is something that you enjoy, then I would say go for it. Learning can be cultivated from every genre, not only our school textbooks. For example, dystopian fiction speculates about possible futures, often questioning reality with what ifs. The Handmaid's Tale, for example, would be what if women lost all power in these modern times? This book, although fiction, uncannily depicts an extreme society tackling the political and demographic issues we face today. And the things that take place in the book are based on events that have happened in the past. Similarly, romance novels teach us about human relationships, sci-fi does wonders to our imagination, and historical fiction brings us on epic adventures set in moments in time. Effective reading starts from picking a book, picking a genre, so don't be afraid to explore its possibilities. Now, the third and last step to build your reading habit would be to set a time limit, once a day or once every few days. And once again, start at a level that you are comfortable with. Even reading for 5 minutes a day is better than none. It takes about 66 days to build a habit and 254 days for it to become a stable habit. Supposing that you read 5 minutes a day, this means that reading at the minimum of 5.5 hours in a total of 2 months will allow you to have the foundations of a reading habit. But more importantly, one should not overwhelm themselves by setting a higher goal than they can reach. If reading for 15 minutes a day seems to be too hard, then read for 5. The length and intensity of reading does not matter. What matters is the consistency. As I've mentioned before, every story in the Gohun Deduksha book had chapters designed to be 5 minutes long, and I made sure that I read at least a story a day. This is what helped me to set small goals, and it's what helped me to complete the book. Did you know that it takes about 5 minutes to read 1,500 English words, or 3,000 Japanese words? Within a year, that's 500,000 in English and 1,000,000 in Japanese at the minimum. And supposing that you learn 4 new words a day, that's 1,500 new words in a year. And this is just the start. Once you get used to reading daily, you can start to increase the time limit. And the more you read, the more easier it'll be for you to pick up a book and concentrate for longer periods of time. When I was first asked, how do I read? I didn't really have an answer to that question, as reading had always been a habit for me and was something that I enjoyed. But through my experience of learning how to read Japanese habitually, I realized that reading doesn't have to be a talent or a skill that someone's born with. You don't have to have an interest in it. But anyone can gain reading skills if they commit to the habit. This can be accomplished by being open-minded, by setting a reading preference, and by challenging yourselves at a level that you can keep up with. Habits are essential to finding a purpose, therefore making reading not only about studying. And for me, I read because it brings me a sense of peace and accomplishment, because it helps me to feel connected to the world. Reading is more than just ink on a page or words on a digital screen. It's about learning through imagination, regardless of genre, and it's something that anyone can achieve. Sentience, tolerance, memory function, concentration, these are all qualities that you can improve through reading. In other words, not only does reading have benefits in educational context, but it has tens of other psychological benefits too. Now, I want you to look at John again. Yes, he might be quiet, and yes, he still might be perceived as nerdy. But know that behind his ability to enjoy all these books, there is a process of struggling to pick up a book, overcoming weakness, finding a purpose, and building a stable habit. Reading is more than just words. There are layers within layers and worlds within worlds. And these are all some things that you can explore if you commit to the reading habit. Thank you.